After all, we can't expect chicken rice sellers to work for free or at a loss, can we? Hello and welcome to another episode of Moneywise. We help you to make sense of the world of personal finance and investing. In today's episode, we're going to look at inflation and its various causes. Then, we're going to look at how you can cope with inflation and perhaps even beat inflation. So, what is inflation? Okay, now I'm sure we all know what inflation is, and we're all definitely feeling the pinch of inflation as the prices of pretty much everything keep rising and we feel the decrease in our purchasing power. But what are the different types of inflation and their causes? First, we have demand pull inflation, which happens when demand suddenly rises and supply does not keep up. For example, remember when Singapore had really bad haze and everyone rushed to buy N95 masks and suddenly the price increased? That's demand pull inflation. Next, we have cost push inflation. This is where the supply of goods has been disrupted for some reason, causing a supply shortage. Buyers of the resource now have to pay higher prices to secure their supply from other producers. This increases the cost of production, a cost which usually gets passed on to consumers like us. For example, if you love chicken rice and the supply costs for chicken was affected, then chicken rice sellers have to pay more for their chicken supply. This cost increase gets passed on to us because after all, we can't expect chicken rice sellers to work for free or at a loss, can we? Otherwise, they would close shop. This is cost push inflation, where supply costs increase and get passed on to us consumers. Next, we have built-in inflation. This happens when employees expect their salaries to incorporate regular adjustments for the cost of living, and companies that can afford pay adjustments usually do so. However, when companies do this, inflation becomes self-fulfilling because when employees earn more, consumer spending also increases, thereby causing the inflation the company was adjusting for in the first place. Lastly, we have one of the worst combinations involving inflation, and that is stagflation. Stagflation is considered to be a nightmare because you get inflation and a slowing economy with rising unemployment. This could cause a country's GDP to shrink, and if this happens for 2 consecutive quarters, then it is considered a recession. For example, imagine taking a pay cut or even losing your job while the prices of food, transport, and everything else keep rising. That can be a serious 1-2 punch for a lot of people. Here's a fun fact: controlled inflation is good and has always been around us. Most governments target annual inflation of around 2%. In economics, healthy inflation is actually essential for economic growth, as your spending is someone else's income. If spending does not increase, incomes do not rise. So if inflation has always been around us, why then are we suddenly feeling the big sting of it? The main cause is the Russia-Ukraine war, which has disrupted the supply of several commodities, especially oil. This is significant because the cost of oil is found in everything. Petrol for vehicles is the most direct effect, so drivers will feel a nasty pinch at the pump. We are also paying more for electricity consumption, so we might want to cut down on our aircon usage and switch off lights more. Now, companies will also face these same pressures. Hence, logistics, operational, and transportation costs all increase. And in order for these companies to survive, they have to raise their prices, which results in us, the consumers, having to pay more. For example, if you wanted to buy a cold bottle of Coke from your nearby minimart, remember that the minimart had to pay for delivery costs, which has increased due to petrol prices rising. And then, the minimart had to store these bottles of Coke in their refrigerators, which uses electricity. That has also increased in price. This is why that bottle of Coke now costs more. Right, now that we know the different types of inflation and why we're feeling the sting so badly, let's look at how we might sidestep or even beat inflation. Firstly, do not panic. Prices are rising, but do not panic and invest your money without proper research and education. You do not enter a combat arena without first learning how to fight and defend yourself. However, it is crucial, now more than ever, that you consider getting started if you have not done so. There is no better time than now to start learning how to grow your money. Take note, your investment returns should at least match or beat inflation. For example, if the inflation rate is 3%, your investments should return at least 3% or more per annum. Secondly, if inflation starts to affect you financially, consider trimming the fat on your spending. Cut down on expensive treats or luxuries and focus on the essentials. If you've already done this, you can still shop around to compare shops and find the best prices. Remember, in this game, you need to maintain a good sword and shield, but you don't need a fancy helmet. Third, stretch your dollar. You can do this by taking advantage of any deal or saving that you can get your hands on. From store sales, membership rewards, government programs like the Pioneer and Merdeka generation perks for those eligible, and even credit card cashback deals. Make sure you take every advantage of these to stretch your dollar. In a game, this is like maximizing the bonus and combo points to get the highest reward possible for all the effort you put in. Lastly, try to avoid sitting on too much idle cash that generates no return. Remember, if the inflation rate is 3% and you only earn 0.05% interest, then your money is losing 2.95% every year. You could even try something simple, like renting a spare room in your house to earn additional income. Main thing is, plan accordingly, ensure adequate savings, and have an investment plan that you are comfortable with. Just like in a game, any advantage, no matter how small, is still an advantage. And always have a battle plan before you attack. In conclusion, inflation is always going to be with us and part of the game. When controlled, inflation is good for the economy. However, when inflation starts getting out of hand, we need to keep calm and carry on. We start by making simple adjustments to our lives, like cutting back on certain spending, stretching our dollar for purchases, and investing more. All of these help to counter the effects of inflation because every little bit that we do adds up over time. Thank you and see you again for another awesome episode of Moneywise.